When we think about the power of ancient Rome, it's easy to picture legions marching under crimson banners, emperors giving speeches from marble pedestals, or roaring crowds in colossal arenas. But behind those grand images stood the men who shaped the fate of the greatest empire of antiquity, the generals. Today we'll uncover the lives of the 10 most feared military commanders in Roman history. His name was Publius Cornelius Scipio, but history would remember him by a title earned through blood, Africanus. And not by chance. He was the man who defeated Hannibal Barca, arguably the most feared enemy general Rome ever faced. During the Second Punic War, Rome was desperate. Hannibal had crossed the Alps with war elephants, devastated Roman armies, and was threatening the capital itself. But Scipio didn't try to confront him head-on in Italy. Instead, he did something bolder. He took the fight directly to Carthage, forcing Hannibal to abandon the Italian campaign and return home to defend his city. The decisive clash came in 202 BC at the Battle of Zama. There, Scipio proved why he's considered one of the greatest strategists of all time. He studied Hannibal's tactics, adjusted his own formations, and most importantly, he neutralized Carthage's greatest advantage, the war elephants. Using deliberate gaps in his lines, Scipio allowed the elephants to charge harmlessly through the Roman ranks. Then with coordinated trumpet blasts and shouting, he confused the animals, causing many of them to turn back and trample their own troops. Once the hand-to-hand fighting began, Rome's disciplined, well-positioned infantry crushed the Carthaginian forces. Hannibal was defeated. That victory didn't just win a battle, it saved Rome from collapse and planted the seeds of its future expansion across the Iberian Peninsula. Gaius Marius came from Arpinum, a town far from the senatorial elite. Yet he rose by sheer merit on the battlefield, and his legacy went far beyond military success. Until his time, only landowners could join the Roman army. Marius broke that tradition. Through one of the most revolutionary reforms in Roman military history, he allowed landless citizens, the capitacensi, to enlist. Men who once had nothing were now given training, equipment, and most importantly, a promise of land in exchange for service. This new model created a more professional and disciplined army, but also one whose loyalty shifted from the Senate to the general who led them. It was the beginning of a dangerous trend. On the battlefield, Marius was relentless. He fought the Numidians in Africa, but his most famous campaigns were against the Germanic tribes, the Teutones and the Cimbri. These tribes had humiliated entire Roman legions and were marching straight toward Italy. Marius intercepted them and annihilated them. It's estimated that over 100,000 enemies were killed under his command. For these achievements, he was elected consul not once or twice, but 7 times. An unprecedented record in Roman history. But with his rising power came tension in Rome, especially with an ambitious political rival who, years later, would turn that tension into open war. Sulla was everything Rome didn't expect in a dictator. Born into a modest family, known for his dandy style and piercing gaze, he hid behind a cold, calculating mind, and he became the omen of the Republic's downfall. Before seizing power, Sulla earned his reputation as a commander in the Numidian Wars, helping Gaius Marius capture Jugurtha. But soon, old allies became deadly enemies, and when the Senate tried to take away his command in a crucial campaign against King Mithridates, Sulla did what no one had ever dared to do. He marched on Rome with his legions. The scene was shocking, citizens fleeing, senators panicking. For the first time, a city accustomed to sending armies abroad watched in terror as one marched through its own gates with hostile intent. Sulla defeated Marius and seized power as dictator, a title that had once been temporary and reserved strictly for emergencies. He used this authority to reshape Rome, reforming the judicial system, weakening the power of the people's tribunes and restoring the Senate's influence. But what defined his rule most infamously were the proscriptions, public lists of political enemies condemned to death. Their property was confiscated, their bodies displayed, and any citizen could kill them without facing punishment. When Sulla eventually stepped down voluntarily, many believed the nightmare had ended, but the damage was done. He had set a deadly precedent, violence as a legitimate path to political power. Pompey wasn't born the Great. He earned that title Magnus as a young man, after a series of lightning-fast victories that even impressed his former mentor, Sulla. In time, he would become one of the most powerful men of the late Republic. Pompey was a military prodigy. Early in his career, he led successful campaigns in Sicily and Africa, fought alongside Sulla during the Civil War, and quickly forged his own path, driven by unstoppable ambition. One of his most remarkable accomplishments came in 67 BC, when he was tasked with solving a problem that had plagued Rome for decades: pirates dominating the Mediterranean Sea. They threatened Rome's food supply and disrupted trade across the empire. Pompey responded with speed and precision. Commanding a fleet of 500 ships and 120,000 men, he divided the sea into patrol zones, cut off escape routes, and captured thousands of pirates. In just 3 months, the Mediterranean was back under Roman control. Once again, Mare Nostrum, our sea. After securing the seas, Pompey turned east. He led brilliant campaigns against King Mithridates, reorganized entire provinces, and vastly expanded Rome's territory and influence in the east. His fame reached legendary heights. With such prestige, Pompey entered into a powerful political alliance, the First Triumvirate, alongside Julius Caesar and Crassus. It was an informal pact that dominated Roman politics for years, but everything changed with the death of Julia, Caesar's daughter and Pompey's wife. The family bond that held them together was gone, and with Crassus dying in a disastrous campaign against the Parthians, the triumvirate collapsed into rivalry. Pompey aligned himself with the Senate. Caesar, meanwhile, marched on Rome. Civil war was now inevitable. Pompey was defeated at the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BC and fled to Egypt, seeking refuge. But instead, he found betrayal. He was assassinated on orders of the Egyptian court, who hoped to gain favor with Caesar. His severed head was presented as a gift, but when Caesar saw it, he wept. His rival was dead. But with him, an entire era came to an end. Julius Caesar wasn't just a military commander. He was a force of nature. He redrew the map of Roman politics, conquered vast territories, and ultimately paid the price for defying every convention of his time. His rise began in politics, but it was on the battlefield where his legacy was immortalized. Between 58 and 50 BC, Caesar led the Gallic Wars with an army fiercely loyal to him. He faced dozens of tribes, crossed treacherous forests and rivers, and famously defeated the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix by besieging his stronghold at Alesia, using a double line of fortifications, one facing outward to stop reinforcements and one inward to trap the enemy. It was the perfect mix of military engineering and ruthless strategy. By conquering Gaul, Caesar didn't just triple Rome's territory, he also became incredibly wealthy and wildly popular among his soldiers and the Roman people. But the Senate, especially Pompey, saw him as a growing threat. When ordered to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, Caesar made a choice that would echo through history. He crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, an act of war. "The die is cast," he reportedly said. And with that, the Roman Republic plunged into another civil war. Caesar defeated Pompey at Pharsalus, chased his remaining enemies to Egypt, entangled himself with Cleopatra, and continued campaigning through the eastern provinces. When he returned to Rome, he was declared dictator for life. He reformed the calendar, creating what we now call the Julian calendar, centralized authority, and had coins minted bearing his own image. It seemed he was untouchable, but his end came where he felt safest: the Senate. In 44 BC, a group of conspirators, among them Brutus, whom Caesar regarded almost as a son, stabbed him 23 times beneath a statue of Pompey. His assassination sent shockwaves through Rome. Instead of restoring the Republic, Caesar's death plunged the city into yet another civil war. Mark Antony embodied everything Rome expected in a leader: charismatic, brave in battle, a skilled orator, and fiercely loyal to his allies. He was Caesar's right-hand man in many campaigns, including the decisive victory at Pharsalus. After Caesar's assassination, Antony was among the first to seize control of the political chaos. His public reading of Caesar's will, which incited the people against the conspirators, remains one of the most powerful political moves in Roman history. To solidify power, Antony formed the second triumvirate with Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, and Lepidus. They divided the Roman world among themselves, but the alliance was fragile from the start. When Antony took command of the eastern provinces, he met the woman who would change everything: Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Their romance shocked Rome, but it wasn't just love, it was strategy. Antony settled in Alexandria, had children with Cleopatra, and in a provocative move, recognized those children as kings of eastern territories. To many Romans, it was nothing short of betrayal. Octavian seized the moment, launching a propaganda war. Antony had become too Eastern. He had abandoned Roman values. Tensions erupted in the great naval clash at Actium in 31 BC, where Octavian's forces crushed the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. Surrounded and defeated, Antony took his own life in 30 BC. Cleopatra followed soon after. With their deaths, Egypt was annexed, and the Roman Republic finally came to an end. If Octavian became the first emperor of Rome, it was Agrippa who made him victorious. Born outside the aristocracy, Agrippa was Octavian's childhood friend. But his loyalty wasn't just personal. It was strategic, unwavering, and above all, effective. Where Octavian was a politician, Agrippa was a general. Where the prince hesitated, Agrippa acted. And when Rome needed victories, Agrippa delivered. His greatest triumph came at the Battle of Actium. While Antony and Cleopatra relied on prestige and passion, Agrippa relied on calculation. He cut off supply lines, isolated the enemy, and personally commanded the Roman fleet. Through bold naval maneuvers, he forced the Egyptians to retreat and secured Octavian's ultimate victory. But Agrippa's contributions didn't stop at war. He reorganized the army, improved aqueducts, drained swamps, built public baths, and perhaps most visibly, he constructed the original Pantheon. Yes, he was a war commander, but also an architect of peace. During campaigns in northern Hispania and the Balkans, he strengthened the empire's borders and brought stability to the newly unified Roman world. He never claimed the title of emperor, though he could have. He never betrayed Octavian, though he had the power. Instead, he married Octavian's daughter and was named heir before his sudden death. Agrippa may be the clearest example that in Rome, glory didn't always come from the throne. Tall, charismatic, and brilliant on the battlefield, Germanicus seemed destined for greatness. Nephew of Emperor Tiberius, grandson of Mark Antony, and officially adopted as heir to the throne, he symbolized a new virtuous generation of Roman leadership. Beloved by his troops and admired by the people, his fame wasn't just inherited, it was earned through the sword. After the trauma of the Teutoburg Forest disaster, where 3 Roman legions were annihilated by Germanic tribes under Arminius, Rome demanded revenge, and it was Germanicus who led that mission. Commanding operations along the Rhine, he marched deep into the treacherous forests of Germania, defying even the gods of that feared land. In one of the most symbolic moments of his career, he recovered the bones of the fallen legions from Teutoburg and gave them proper military burials, reviving Roman morale. Then came the counterattack. In 16 AD, at the Battle of the Weser River, Germanicus faced Arminius in open field. Through agile tactics, he exploited the strength of the legions and the superiority of Roman cavalry to inflict heavy losses on the enemy. Despite his victories, his career was abruptly cut short. Summoned back to Rome by order of Tiberius, Germanicus died soon after, under suspicious circumstances, while on a diplomatic mission in the East. Many believed he had been poisoned. The empire mourned his death, yet his legacy endured. His son Caligula and his great-nephew Nero would go on to wear the imperial crown, though with far darker destinies. Agricola may not be the most famous name in Roman history, but his legacy echoed across the misty fields of Britannia, a remote, hostile land fiercely resistant to Roman rule. Born into a prestigious family, Agricola rose steadily through the ranks, proving himself a strict administrator and a brilliant strategist. When he was appointed governor of Britannia in 77 AD, much of the island remained unconquered. The native tribes fought back fiercely, and Roman control barely extended beyond the south. Agricola changed that. Over 7 years of almost uninterrupted campaigning, he pushed Roman dominance far beyond its previous limits. He built forts, fortresses, and roads, not just for moving troops, but to project Roman authority deep into enemy territory. He established direct military routes, set up administrative centers, and subtly encouraged Romanization, inviting local elites into Roman culture and politics. But Agricola wasn't just a politician. He was a soldier. He led his troops northward toward what is now Scotland, and in the Battle of Mons Graupius, he crushed the Caledonian forces. It was a stunning victory, minimal Roman casualties, massive losses for the enemy. It was also under his leadership that Roman naval expeditions finally confirmed what had long been suspected, that Britannia was, in fact, an island. But success came with a cost. The Emperor Domitian, jealous and paranoid, called Agricola back to Rome. He was never given military command again. He lived the rest of his life in silence, surrounded by rumors of poisoning, like so many others who shone too brightly under insecure emperors. Drusus was the younger brother of Tiberius and the favorite son of Livia, wife of Augustus. Unlike many Roman nobles, he didn't inherit his fame. He earned it on the battlefield. He led bold campaigns that pushed the Roman frontier beyond the Rhine River. Young, ambitious, and immensely popular with his soldiers, Drusus was entrusted with one of the empire's most difficult tasks, subduing the Germanic tribes. Between 12 and 9 BC, he led multiple expeditions deep into Germania's heartland. He conquered the Tencteri, the Usipetes, and the Sugambri, extending Rome's reach as far as the Weser and Elbe rivers, lands no Roman general had dared explore so deeply before. But it wasn't just his victories that earned respect. He was admired for his sense of justice, for sharing dangers with his men, and for being a present, grounded commander who marched, ate, and slept alongside his legions. That personal bond with the troops became a defining part of his legend. Tragically, in 9 BC, after a successful campaign, Drusus fell from his horse during a retreat and suffered fatal injuries. He died shortly after, only 29 years old at the height of his fame. All of Rome mourned. Augustus wept. Tiberius rode for days to be at his brother's side in his final moments. Drusus was honored with funerary monuments and posthumous tributes. And more than that, his title, Germanicus, was passed on to his descendants, including his son, the famed Germanicus, and even to the infamous Emperor Caligula. The history of Rome is often told through the voices of emperors and senators, But it was the generals, those men of vision, courage, and ambition, who truly shaped the empire's destiny. They were the ones who marched into unknown lands, who made life and death decisions in moments that would echo for centuries. Some of them built Rome's glory through conquest. Others defended it from collapse. Many paid for their brilliance with exile, betrayal, or death. But all of them left a mark carved deep into the fabric of history. If you enjoyed discovering the brilliant minds behind Rome's military power, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, may Mars guide you in battle.